I think we got the best fans in the league. The Arrowhead carries the torch for being the best fans in the league. Some of the loudest ones and the most fun ones. So
the atmosphere, the fan base, the support groups had an impact on our season.
This fan base is dialed in.
Like, I'm gassing you guys up and gassing up the state of Utah, but it's the truth. You guys have one of the best fan supporter groups.
I'm going home to play for my hometown team. Looking back to when I was 10 years old, that's every kid's dream.
Welcome to another episode of the Arrowhead Podcast. We are your official podcast of the official supporter group of the Utah Archers Lacrosse Club. So excited for this episode today. I got to give a big shout out to our guy, Ryan Ambler. We're going to start having to pay him like an agent fee at this point. He's managed to hook us up with several players to get interviews done. But we have with us none other than the number one pick of this year, Shortstick D Midi, Aidan Maguire. Aidan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
All right, man. We're going to start this the same way we start every episode with a player. Everybody knows you as Aidan Maguire, number one draft pick, Archers player, Duke player, but who is Aidan Maguire?
Aidan Maguire, first and foremost, I'm one of 5 kids. I take a lot of pride in that. I'm the second oldest. I have 3 sisters and a brother. Kira, Ava, and Carly are my sisters. My brother, Devin. He just completed Beast actually at West Point right now, so I got to give him a shout out. Carrying the American flag for the A Company, really special. Yeah, I guess I'm a product of my siblings and my parents, family and friends. But I'm just an Irish kid from Boston who got introduced to lacrosse and kind of fell in love with it.
Love that. Yeah. Shout out to your brother. Thank you for your service. That's amazing that he's doing that. And yeah, love the shout out to the family. I think most of us here have large families. And so, yeah, love it. And you're the second oldest. Where did your brother lie in that? Did you have the sisters all around you? How does that fall?
Yeah. So it goes my sister Kira, myself, my sister Ava, then my brother Devin, little sister Carly.
Did it good. Like every other one. That's a good spread. So
yeah.
Props to the parents. Good job.
We got to know who's the favorite.
The favorite? Oh man, my sisters, as of late, they like to say it's me. I don't think that's true. It varies. Whoever's being the best kid, I would say. It varies.
Love it. Yeah. Well, good stuff. Well, you talked about lacrosse being you kind of fell into lacrosse. Obviously, you're a football player in high school as well. You played wide receiver, cornerback. Talk to us about that, playing football. How did lacrosse happen? How'd your story start?
Yeah. I grew up playing hockey, actually, mostly. Hockey was my first sport I ever played. It's really big in Boston. My dad was a hockey football guy, and because hockey was so busy, I didn't get to play football until high school. But yeah, I grew up playing hockey. I loved it. I love hockey to this day. I watch hockey all the time. I'm a diehard Bruins fan. I'm an annoying Bruins fan, probably. But my uncle, my mom's sister's husband. So my uncle, he's from Syracuse, New York, and obviously lacrosse is huge there. And so around the end of elementary school, he kind of introduced lacrosse. He said I should try it. I would love it. And I started then, and I definitely, I think I fell in love with it right away. Just a game that, as a angry Irish kid, reckless kid, it just seemed like you could hit and slash and hit people, and the game kind of seemed like it never stopped. And I think I fell in love with that because I love to run around and just be a hyper kid. So I think lacrosse was something that I really fell in love with right away. But then obviously continued playing hockey with that as well, up until high school. And then, I always watched football growing up. I watched the Patriots. I watched Boston College. That's where my dad went. He played football there. And I was dying to try it. And so, when I stopped playing hockey around the end of middle school, I finally had, time in the fall to actually try out football. And that was kind of another thing I fell in love with right away. Just showed up at my first football practice and got absolutely just decked. I got wrecked within the first 5 minutes, and immediately I was like, this is awesome. This is football. This is sports. This is what it's all about. And I went to started playing at St. Seb's, and I loved it there. So much fun.
That's at what point did you kind of figure out like lacrosse is going to be my path here? Because I mean, it sounds like you played a whole bunch of sports. You love sports. What point were you like lacrosse is going to be my path?
Probably in high school. I was a small kid. I was very small most of my life, and so I think probably around high school, I grew a lot very quickly. Within a year, I grew like I entered high school at 5'6", 130 pounds. Like I was a pretty small kid. And within a year, I grew. I kind of grew into my body. And I started playing travel lacrosse. And I think kind of as I started to practice more and play the game more and really kind of put it together, I started to realize like, oh, I could really do something with this. And I loved lacrosse too. So that made it a lot easier. It wouldn't have probably been something I pursued if I didn't love it. But yeah, I'd say like early in high school, just starting when I grew and kind of started to see like the benefits of working hard and staying humble, like kind of start to come together. I think I realized like maybe this is something I could do after high school, and maybe I could do it in college, and so it went from there.
Love that. Last question I'll hand over to Brady, but like there's a bunch of kids that listen to this, parents. You played multiple sports. Talk about kind of how you feel that helped you in general, certainly even as a lacrosse player, but like how did that help you play multiple sports?
Oh, I think that is like, that's the best thing a parent can do is sign your kid up for any sport that they're willing to try. Like any sport that, the worst that can happen is you go out and you don't enjoy it and you say you tried it. But I feel like there's so much that translates from sport to sport. I think like being a hockey player has, helped me beyond measure. Like as a lacrosse player, like I say to this day, like I was, I've never been coached harder than I was in youth hockey. Youth hockey it's some of those coaches are tough, man. And they taught you like you get hit and you get up and you keep trying and try again. And like, that's a lesson that transcends the field, transcends the ice. That's a lesson about life. And I think, obviously there's parts of the game just skill wise, like, stick handling a hockey puck and cradling a lacrosse ball are two similar things. And I think they translate well back and forth to one another. Like I know so many kids who turned out to be amazing hockey players that would have been just as great, if not better at lacrosse, but they chose hockey and they obviously excelled at it. But I think, playing other sports, being on a team, being in a locker room, like building camaraderie with your team, like that's just something that you can't learn anywhere else. And, like I said, like hockey and stick handling, and also, I'd say in football, building a team culture and, like I said, being in a locker room and joining a family is what sports is all about. And I think that, that taught me a lot about being a man and it helped me in my lacrosse career. I think just, putting yourself out there and being a part of a team is something that not everyone gets to say they can do. And, it's a special thing.
Aidan, kind of going along with that sentiment of being a good team member, when you were first kind of recruited to Duke, we'd kind of like to hear a little bit more about that, but specifically with that phone call with Coach Caputo and him asking you to play, short stick D midi.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if every player is humble enough to say, hey, yeah, let's do it. Whatever you say, coach. Some kids are really attached to their positions. I kind of want you to dive in, and obviously you play wide receiver and cornerback. Did that kind of translate over to your willingness to jump into this new learning curve? Kind of, if you don't mind expanding on some of that for us, we would love to hear about that.
Yeah. I think that willingness to do anything for the team, I think that started with my parents and my family. Like you're never bigger than what the team needs of you. And that's team sports. That is a fundamental piece of, any team, any good team is full of players that are selfless and that will do anything to help the team win. And that's what my parents taught me about sports, but they taught me that about being a man is you do what you can and you do what's asked of you. And my parents were, they instilled that in me at a young age, and my siblings too. Like my siblings were amazing athletes, but they're better teammates. And I learned that from them, and 3 of them are younger than me. And I think that speaks to, my parents really just teaching me from a young age that, it's the humility, and the selflessness is what takes you places in this life. And so I think, when Coach Caputo called, I was thrilled that he thought of me as someone that could help the team win, even if it's at a position I didn't really know how to play. I definitely didn't know how to play. And, it definitely took some time. It took a whole fall of, getting smoked, getting beat for goals, missing assignments defensively. But, having a group of 50 plus guys and the coaching staff that believed in me and had my back, even when I made all those mistakes, and telling me to just keep working at it, keep working hard, keep on keeping on. And, I think when Coach Caputo called, the only thing I had to say was absolutely, I'll do it. And I think it made me feel like they believed in me, even if it was at a position that I had a lot of learning to do. And, so, yeah.
I think that's probably been one of the most thoughtful responses we've ever had on the podcast. I really appreciated that.
Sure.
And I know that you're a really humble guy, so I'm going to try and phrase this question a little bit better. When it talks about, D-middies and awards and things, you've got quite a few awards. You're very accomplished at that position. You've also talked about when you started out in that fall, having a rough start a little bit. Talk to us about that process of learning the position and eventually separating yourself from other D-middies, and kind of how you started advancing a little bit more, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think, when you get, when we got down to campus at Duke, we don't practice right away. We don't put the pads on and play live. A lot of it begins with working with our strength coach, Carl Christensen, who's an absolute legend, and has, helped me transcend as an athlete. Like that's the first thing, most importantly, is like getting people up to speed athletically, on the field, movement wise and in the weight room. And I think that's something that might still be overlooked, is like the importance of the weight room and obviously what it can do for an athlete, but also what it can do for a team. Like when you have a team that is dedicated and loves to be in the weight room together and gets loud, like probably too loud at times, like our team was down at Duke, like there's really nothing like it. And so, I think having that base and like even just building confidence in, sprints and drills and conditioning, like building that chemistry with guys like who are going to cheer you on when you have one more rep, and when the conditioning, the conditioning test for that day or the run, the lift is really difficult, and having guys like, pushing you and cheering you on. Like I think that translated to, the 3 weeks, 4 weeks later when we finally did put the pads on, and just having those guys trust that I'm going to do my best. Like that was a big deal, because then, we put the pads on and I was a fish out of water. I was, obviously really new to the position. But I was willing to work my absolute hardest. I worked my ass off because that's what those guys taught me. Like those guys led by example. Those guys were, going to practice in the morning, going to class, and then going back to the field and putting in the extra work. And they're bringing me along. Like they're showing me that, doing extra work and giving 110% is just the standard. And I think that really helped me, like just having those guys who were, people I considered my big brothers, who really led the way and like just showed me that the only way to improve on this thing is to work at it tirelessly. So, having them and obviously the support of the coaches, like, they'd get on me when it was necessary, but they'd rein me in if I was getting too hard on myself, if I was getting down because I was, really bad at playing D midi. And so having their support, having those guys to support, just instilled the confidence in me that I tried to bring every day, in addition to like a good work ethic. And I think just working hard and, playing for the best coaches in the world, which I did, helped me, obviously create some individual success that I'm proud of. But, we didn't win a national championship, and that was the goal. And that, that's the end. At the end of the day, it's like the goal is to win as a team. And I'm proud of the things I've accomplished individually, but, I still look back and wonder if there's more I could have done to win on the final day. But, I wouldn't trade that time for anything.
Okay.
You can
So
fill that
one
void
quick-
for the PLL championship this year. It'll be totally fine. So
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
One
That's
quick
what we're
question
working
before I
towards.
hand it off to Toast. You talked about playing, offensive midfielder in high school and then making that transition to defensive midfielder. You said feeling like a fish out of water. At what point did you feel like, okay, this is my position and I am now short stick defensive midi, where you could more identify with that position and felt more comfortable?
Like I said, it took a lot of time. It took a lot of failing and, falling down and getting up again. That's just life. But, I think because we practice so often, we practice so hard, and we drill things so consistently down there, like, I think that at a certain point you start to become, like, you familiarize yourself with positions on the field, with, like, mistakes that you've made that how to correct. Like, there's things that you just get coached out of, your bad habits, like, and even just watching the guys in front of me, like watching those older guys and like trying to take a piece of every single one of their games and adding it to my game. I think like the culmination of all those things, like, kind of just brings that confidence that you need. And when you play confident in yourself, but more importantly, confident in the team and what we can do, like that, there's no stopping a team like that, full of guys like that.
Okay.
And going back to your last year at college, you obviously had an excellent career at Duke, and I know this year was a little bit unique in that you had kind of the draft going on at the same time, and I'm sure you were just locked in on the national championship, and meanwhile you've got all this buzz in the background of draft going on. There's a lot of talk between who's going to go number one and all that. So we kind of want to just ask you about what was that process like for you, having to juggle these two things, and then also afterwards, getting drafted number one, being the first D mid ever number one, and then getting drafted into a group that has such a strong D mid core already. I just want to hear your thoughts on kind of all that. I know it's a bit loaded.
No. Yeah, I think the timing of it was interesting because, the weeks, the few weeks leading up to the draft, I think was when I, started talking to some of the coaches, and obviously Coach Bates, had reached out and, kind of, I think it was cool. It was cool to know that, people thought I could, play at the next level. And it wasn't really something I had considered up until this last year. Like, really all my time and energy was focused on Duke, and that still remained true. Like, when the draft, the weeks leading up to the draft and after. But, having the draft, we had the draft, April 14th, and we had just lost 3 straight, and I had never lost 3 straight at Duke. I hadn't lost 3 straight in a long time in my athletic career. And so we were in a weird spot. And, when you're so wrapped up and tied into that team and just winning the next game, like, it really, was my main focus. But I luckily just like I had such a good group of guys like that were on that team and kind of pushed me towards like, no, you should celebrate this. Like this is something you should be proud of and you've accomplished. And had them having my back. And we had a bunch of the guys from the team over at my buddy's house during the draft. I didn't know they were going to be there, and they all just showed up because they were my best friends. And so, getting to hear your name called first is definitely something special. And having those guys jump on me when it got announced was something I won't forget. But we celebrated that briefly, and then we moved on to practice the next day. Like that's just how things are done at Duke, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a crazy time for you. And then, speaking of crazy times, you also, after right after the playoffs, you kind of have to make this really hard transition immediately to the pros. This is like one of the first years of not having that training camp and having to make that switch so quickly. What was that transition like for you? And like, who were some of the biggest mentors and helpers in that transition for you?
Yeah, the transition was not easy. You could definitely see that like at the start of the year. I was struggling. I think obviously, playing a college season, it definitely takes a toll, on your body and emotionally too. That's something that, maybe I overlooked was, I had to take time to kind of emotionally remove myself from Duke and that team, because that team was my family. It was everything to me. And have it wrap up, with a solid year, but we obviously didn't accomplish what we wanted to. Wasn't easy. And saying goodbye to people, and my coaches was definitely hard. But that's life, that's sports. And I was, it was something that maybe I overlooked, and just the idea of I'm lucky to be able to say I got to continue to play that game. Like that game in May was wearing Duke wasn't my last game playing the sport, and I'm really blessed to say that. And I definitely was feeling a little sorry for myself after the season ended, but like quickly, obviously my parents and my siblings and my friends were incredibly supportful, and just reminded me like I'm lucky to keep playing this game, and immediately putting on an Archer's jersey, like those guys welcomed me into that locker room like I'd been there for years. Like it's just like it just speaks to the culture that Coach Bates and all those older guys have built, and even the younger guys. Like I think just having their support and having them make me feel like I was part of this team before I even stepped foot in the locker room was really special. And like you guys mentioned earlier, like also entering a D-Midi room with the three best D-Midis in the league, like they made it easy for me because I just got to watch what they did and try to emulate that. And it was the same as college. I just tried to take pieces of their game and add it to mine. And so it definitely was a quick transition. And it took some time of, losing and getting beat and, really like evaluating myself and what it was the team needed from me and how I needed to play better. And, I think those guys were just so supporting and really had my back, and like they could tell that I would get down on myself, but they had so much confidence in me that it really, they made it so much easier than it could have been.
That's awesome. And just a quick comment on that, like it's been visible from our end, like the transition that you've made from the beginning. Like we knew you were going to be a great player, but like seeing where you're at now, it's like you've been in the league for years, and the transition and just everything's been awesome. So just wanted to sing your praises for a little bit. We've been so stoked to have you on the team. So
Thank you.
it's been awesome.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and I will say, I mean, Matty Palin was on an episode, so I feel like we can say this. The first penalty you got was definitely not a penalty, and you still won it. So, I don't harbor any ill feelings or hold grudges. So, you know, it's been so great to see you come in, and then obviously, as Toast talked about, you missed kind of the first part of that season. Barring California just not showing up next weekend and Denver being able to put 29 points up, you guys are going to be the number 1 seed. Which means you're locked in to come back here to Utah in September. Like for you, what is, it's going to be your first time here playing, in the bank in front of, what we consider the best fans in the league. Talk to us about what that means to you and then your feelings for that.
It's awesome. I think the coolest part is kind of just seeing the excitement of the guys who have played at the bank. And, obviously those are games I watched on TV. And, it's funny, like Brendan O'Neill is, he's one of my best friends. And, like watching him get booed every time he touches the ball, like, he's my best friend, but he plays for Denver. So like, obviously seeing that, I'm kind of like, wow, like these people really know, like he's the best player in the world. And, this is a fan base that understands that and gets that. And like, they want to see the Archers win. And you can't say that about the other teams in the league. Like you can't say that there's a fan base that knows the game and cares so much about it. Like, I think, it's so obvious, like, and I'm watching it on my phone on the ESPN app, like just to be able to now know that like I'm going back there and get to play for the Archers in front of like that team, in front of that fan base, is really special. And having the guys that have played there before, like seeing them light up, like when they realize that we're going to be playing there in a few weeks in front of the home crowd, like that's all I need to know. It just like tells me how much that it means to play in front of the home crowd, at the bank.
Love that. We'll be loud for you. We'll make sure we do Brandon extra loud for you. So,
and a disclaimer with that is with Brendan is it's a total respect thing. Like we're booing him, but it's out of respect.
Yeah, you're not booing him because he's a bad guy. You're booing him because you don't want to see him put up 5 goals on us. Like, and he knows that too. Like he knows, and that's another cool thing is like, you guys, if you were booing him because you thought he was a bad guy, it'd be because our fan base didn't understand the game, but that's not the case at all. And I think everyone in the game knows that, which is even cooler.
100%.
It's a fun tradition now. It'll never die.
Yeah.
So, yeah. As long as he keeps on, as long as we keep having the impact we did last game where he didn't put up big numbers, we'll keep booing. So it'll be good. So, another one of those. No, and I appreciate, like, we're so excited to have you guys back out here in September. Like, I can't say how excited we are. And I know Dobble was out here for the youth. They had the youth camp out here, and he was talking about how excited he was because he'd missed it. And so it is going to be great to have the whole team out here and, see Tom coming back into practice. Like, it feels like it's all coming together. So, yeah, just stoked.
Hey, and we'll get out of your hair here in a minute. We do just have like one last question for you. Just looking forward to the future, and this doesn't necessarily have to be athletic career, but just what does the future look like for you? I know there was an article that mentioned you wanted to be like a teacher and maybe a coach, or we got the Olympics coming up. You've got pros, you got a lot of things to look forward to, and I know this has been a crazy year. You've been playing lac since the year started, and so I'm sure there's a lot of other things on your mind, but just what are some of the things that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost is playing in Utah. I think obviously there's other things that I have to look forward to, but I not yet is the beauty of it. Is like we've put ourselves in a good position that we're most likely be the 1 seed, and play in front of a home crowd in the semifinals for a spot in the championship. And that just gets me really excited. But, beyond that, I think the NLL is something that I'm definitely going to pursue. The indoor league, like we've got a bunch of guys who do both. And, they've given me a lot of advice and just talked how much they love to play in both leagues is really cool. So like, having that opportunity is definitely going to be really, really special and something I'm looking forward to. And like you mentioned, obviously, you know, the Olympics is something that's any kid's dream. And I think, you know, obviously, God willing, I can make that roster, and, you know, play for a gold medal. That's the goal. But, you know, in the meantime, I'm just looking forward to playing another game in the Archers jersey.
Love it.
Love it. Love it.
And Aidan, so thankful to have you on today. We really appreciate you taking time with us. And again, thanks to Ryan Ambler for making this happen. And I do need to know, though, Aidan, is Dobson trying to make you a Mammoth fan?
I don't know. Well, Dauber's in Atlanta, so he's pushing for me to play for this form, but you know, I'll be lucky to get drafted wherever it may be. But you know, selfishly, I'd want to play with one of the guys. You know, we've got guys up in Rochester, we got guys in Denver, we got guys in San Diego, we got Dauber in Georgia. Like, if I could play with one of those teams with one guy, one Archers guy, like I'm beyond happy. So we'll see how it works out. But you know, I'd like to play against Dauber just so I can give him a little bit of shit.
It meant the Utah Mammoth, by the way. Like he's big on the
yeah.
Well, you ditch your lifelong Bruins fan and become a Mammoth fan.
And you know, I can definitely put the Mammoth as a close second. You know, obviously it's cool to see like some of those guys come out to the games too, like that. You know, the way Dauber and some of the guys describe having them at the games, and also like going to hang out with those guys post game, or going to Mammoth games and watching them play, like that. What a cool thing. You know, I love hockey, so you know, I'm going to try not to be starstruck in front of the NHL guys, but I might end up being.
Whatever, they're going to be like, dude, I got to go out with Aidan Maguire tonight. Let's see how it is. But no, Aidan, so grateful to have you on. Like, we're so stoked you're an Archer. Like, Toast actually called it when I think we had an episode talking about the draft, and Toast like, hey, there's a guy out there I really wanted to get, and that's Aidan Maguire. So yeah, we're so excited you went number 1 and you're an Archer, and we're excited to see you out here in a few weeks. And you know,
I can't wait. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Also, I lied. I do have one more question. There have been a lot of ice cream games this year. We got to know what the ice cream flavor your go-to is.
I think nothing beats cookie dough. I'm a cookie dough guy. But it does taste a little bit better after a win and holding the team to single digits. So, you know, it's cookie dough, but it tastes a little better after a win for sure.
Love it.
good stuff. All right, Brady, you want to take us out?
Yeah, I mean, we're hoping to see you guys in the semifinal out here in Utah, and that's going to be a really important game. So above all else, win, and then we'll be cheering you guys on in the championship. So
let's go.
Above all else, win. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
This podcast is not affiliated with the Premier Lacrosse League or Archers Lacrosse Club. This is an independent, fan-run podcast.
The arrowhead, we aim, we fly through the chaos, gun in the sky. Hit the mark, we never miss. Lacrosse is live and it starts with